What's up everybody, Astroligator here, psyched to have you back for part 3 of our journey in using deep listening to learn about contrast in music. If you missed the first parts, I'll have a link right at the top for you to check them out. Just to recap though, we learned how rhythmic contrast changes the atmosphere of a song by using loose and disconnected or tightly locked rhythms, how melodies keep a listener engaged even if they aren't actively listening. So today, let's talk about the last one, harmonic contrast. Here we will listen to the use of single note versus chord-based melodies, when we want to fill up harmonic space, and clean versus distorted sounds. I won't really get into the music theory definitions of harmonics. I want to strictly stay on how they sound in music. So put on some headphones and let's dive into the mix. Let's jump right in and start talking about the use of single note based melodies versus chord based melodies. First, what's the difference between a single note and a chord? A single note is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to hit one note at a time to create melodies, whereas a chord is using multiple notes at one time and then using multiple chords to make a melody. The biggest contrast and the difference between the two is how full they sound. So what do I mean by that? When you're playing one note at a time, it's going to sound a bit emptier because that one note can only take up so much frequency and harmonic space. But when you introduce multiple notes at the same time to make a chord, you're actually filling in that harmonic space and making it sound much more full. Now, let's combine everything we've learned about contrast so far to break down these two guitar riffs. We know the rhythms and we know the melodies, but what's the harmonic difference between them? Could you tell which one was using a single note melody versus a chord-based melody? Let's slow them down a bit and see what makes up each melody. Let's start with the verse. You can hear how each note is defined and easy to hear, but the sound isn't as full because it's only using single notes. But in contrast, here's the chorus melody. Here, each note isn't as easy to discern, but the sound of each note is much more full because we're using chords. We're taking the lowest note of the chord, or the fundamental note, and adding another note called the fifth to it. This is also known as a power chord. Simply by adding this one additional note, we're creating a much fuller sound, and then we can go and add the bass and the drums to fill in even more harmonic space. So just to reiterate, the contrast is happening between how much of the harmonic space each melody and each verse or chorus is taking up. Remember, we want the chorus to lift and feel bigger and fuller than the other sections. That way they really stand out and shine. We want to fill up that harmonic space by either changing what type of notes we're playing or introducing more instruments, and then do the exact opposite by taking them away. But there's another type of harmonic contrast that's happening between these two sections. That is, we're going from a clean sound to a distorted sound. This is a big way to give two sections a lot of contrast because they're basically opposites. A clean sound is smoother and calmer, whereas a distorted sound is more aggressive and harsher in nature. Let's listen. So the chorus is using that more distorted sound, but let's change it and see what happens to the feeling if we make it clean. You can hear how the chorus doesn't have the punch or the energy it had when the guitars were distorted. We actually took away the harmonic intensity that the distortion was bringing to them. It really gives it the edgier and more aggressive sound to help it stand out. I actually had some guitars muted, so let's add them back in and hear how they fill in even more of the harmonic space by using layers of instruments. We learned about all 3 types of contrast in music now, so in your favorite songs, try to listen to each type, how they change the atmosphere and the feeling of a song. And tell me about the songs that totally nail it when it comes to contrast. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate your support. And if you want to hear the song, just click right here. But I'll see you next time.